welcome to the next episode of Independence for America. At Independence for America, we tell the story of state and local independent candidates. Today, I have Jennifer Passey, who is who was on the Fairfax City Council, and she is thinking about putting her hat back into the ring for politics. We'll get back into that a little bit later. So, thanks for taking time out of your day to be on the podcast, Jennifer.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Mike.
All right. Well, let's just roll into this. I always like to get a little background on people, like, how they grew up and, some of their values when they grew up. Can you give us a little bit of a background for our viewers?
Absolutely. And it's a great question because it really usually is the stem of their why, right?
Right.
And so I grew up actually in a northern suburb of Minneapolis, so Blaine, Minnesota. Grew up there, went to school there, K through 12. My father specifically was very involved in our community, in their city. He served on the planning commission there for 25 years, so over 2 decades. He ran for city council twice when I was growing up. So as a kid, I was passing out things to door, putting things on folks' door. He was not successful in those campaigns. And again, he ran as an independent as well. And he also ran for a county commissioner, and he was not successful in that as either, but was very well known, very involved. And as a kid, I always loved because he would have insight into you'd start to see the bulldozers, developing a new project, and he always knew what it was going to be. And so I had insider information is what I thought. So
as a kid growing up. Yeah.
But it was very important. If you want to, if you're living in a community, you have to give back to the community. And if you have strong opinions or strong feelings on things, it's really good to have a conversation, and being a part of that conversation. For my father, I saw that it was through, local government.
I love that story, having that example from your father, and I'm sure your family also. And also, you were, dropping in the neighborhood and everything as a young girl. So
yeah, absolutely. And then when he ran for county commissioner, I had moved out to DC area here. I went to college here. And so that's how I ended up out here. And I was graduated, I was newly married. And he was like, I'm thinking about doing this, county commissioner. And so I was like, Dad, you don't know how to set up a website, because, that was the thing, people always had a website, and I was like, I'll set that up for you, and helped him from afar.
Oh, that's a good story. So for our viewers, can you describe Fairfax City, some of, just kind of the stats, but also, kind of the look and feel of it and everything?
Absolutely. So we're one of the 38 independent cities that's in Virginia. And so it's 6 square miles, 6.3 to be exact, I believe, just under 30,000 residents. And it's right in the heart of Fairfax County, which is a massive county, not only the land square, miles wise, but population.
Right.
And it's kind of this little oasis where we are a small town feel.
Yeah, it's a small town feel, but you're in this, Northern Virginia suburb type area.
Exactly.
What do you do yourself, and what do you kind of hand off to Fairfax County?
So we, the first thing is the public school system. We are part of the Fairfax County public school system. So we, have our students, are under that jurisdiction for, curriculum, teachers, and schools. But we manage our school buildings and properties. So we do have a school board actually at the city level, where they oversee the projects to repair the school, update the schools, and we have a budget. And so we have a contract with Fairfax County that kind of delineates that. But we have our own police department, fire department, and all of those things. We do have a community center area, where folks who are, seniors program, and that's run by the city, but the county is members of it. And so we have these this integrated
sharing relationships. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it's been very good. Right. And so builds that relationship when we're building on projects that are kind of at the borders too.
All right. So tell me a little bit about your political journey. Okay. So how did you get into the biz?
Yeah. It wasn't my intention, but again, it comes back to that. You go back to your roots a little bit. And so when we moved here, got involved, I joined the Planning Commission. That was initially what I did. We moved into this neighborhood, and it was a few months later, the candidates for city council were starting to kind of ramp up, and I was like curious. And so I had gotten involved in our neighborhood, association, and said, do we host like a candidates night? And they're like, oh no, we haven't really done that. So I hosted that for our community. I had all the candidates come, and I got to meet them all, and they were kind of like, well, who are you? It's a small town again. Right. And so they didn't really know who I was. And so I got to know them all a little bit through that evening, and then conversations. And someone said, well, there's a position open on the Planning Commission coming up. You should think about that. And so I applied, and that's how it started. And, Planning Commission is really looking at projects and planning out, and like, where do you want the community to go? Like, right. What's our plan? And so
it's probably one of the most important commissions in local government. Planning
100%.
Commission. Yeah.
100%.
So, all right. So how did the decision-making process, and then just kind of the nuts and bolts of starting a campaign?
Right. So we had an open position come about where a mayor had to step down and under circumstances, and they had a special election for the mayor, and a current sitting council member won that seat for mayor. And so there was a special election opportunity.
And what year was this?
This was 2017. Okay. And so it was September of 2017 was the special election. Usually our elections at that time were in May. And so the term had just kind of gotten started. And so I ran for this open seat, which is unique because usually we have 6 city council seats. It's, people run they're all open at large. And so this was an opportunity to run in a special way where you knew exactly how you were competing with someone else, right? Or numbers, you were going for the same seat. So it was easy, whoever got the most votes wins. It wasn't trying to calculate, chances of, getting within 6 seats. So it just seemed a little bit easier.
Now, what's the role of the political parties in Fairfax City?
It's been changing over the past few years. So because our elections were in May, they didn't really get too involved. Yes, there were always candidates that were going after those endorsements, but they weren't as loud in a May election. Those switched just after COVID, actually, like 2020 elections. They switched them to November, as you know, in Virginia. All May elections had to move to November. That changed the game because now on the sample ballots for all of those, statewide candidates or federal level, now they're including on their sample ballots who they endorse for city council.
All right, but you consider yourself an independent, but did you seek an endorsement or did they just give you one?
I did not seek an endorsement. No, I did not. In fact, my campaign logo was a blue star and a red star combined or it was a conversation box of a red conversation box and a blue conversation with a purple star in the middle.
I like that. Yeah.
To really emphasize that, like, I'm having conversations with everyone, and really at the local level, it's purple because we all are trying to work towards this common goal of making our community what we want it to be.
So there's no primaries or caucuses. So is it a little bit behind closed doors where they endorse people if they want to?
Yeah, they'll put it out kind of in social media, local, Fairfax City patch, right. And then they've got their own kind of like circular mailers that go out. And again, like that sample ballot.
Yeah, it's a lot more intense in Arlington.
Oh, so. I can only imagine.
Yeah, so, and Arlington is deep blue, and they have school board caucus to endorse the Democratic nominee, and then in in the county board, it's a full blown primary and
Yeah.
everything. And so, I'm a big advocate for ranked choice voting, and they decided to do ranked choice voting for both the primary and for the general election, and getting it for the general election was a big deal for me, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not a Democrat, so I'm an independent. So, have you thought about implementing ranked choice voting in Fairfax City?
There were discussions when I was on council at that time, because it was just starting to kind of get, that was the time also,
Well, they passed the law in 2020. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had initial, and that's when I stepped down, was 2021.
Right.
So we had those conversations. I'm not exactly sure where they are at that point right now. Obviously, we haven't implemented it, so it's still possibly ongoing.
Let me know if you want to get involved in that and everything. All right. So tell me a little bit about the nuts and bolts of serving and campaigning too. I think we skipped the part about, knocking on doors and what people say and your conversations with voters and things like that.
Because we are a small town per se, folks really expect you to have a conversation with them. They want to kind of have,
dialogue,
who's out there and a dialogue.
Yeah.
So knocking on doors is very important. And again, I would say it's important everywhere, but it's really important here in my experience. And so
I loved it, by the way.
It was my favorite because you could really, again, you're having a dialogue. And I think it needs to be more of that because having a dialogue on social media is not effective often. And so having that conversation, understand what they're really feeling, you would expect, just as they make assumptions maybe about candidates, I sometimes would make assumptions about like this street feels this way, and that's not the case. And so it was what stickers they have on their cars or something like that. Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just like that if you're running under a party, right? Like one of the two major parties, people make a lot of assumptions about you,
right? And
that aren't necessarily true. And especially on the local level, I don't need to have those conversations. Really, it's getting the work done here.
Yeah, keep it local. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So, how about fundraising? How did you approach fundraising, and do you remember how much you raised and that type of thing?
Yes. So I, in my commitment to my family, we were a young family at that time. We're still young.
Still young.
I didn't want to use a lot of our funds, so I kind of put the seed money in to get myself
you gotta loan yourself,
all that stuff, and put myself a loan, but really focused on the low dollar amount amongst many people, right? So I turned 40 during that time, I think it was the first campaign. And so I did 40 for 40 on my birthday month.
Right. Give me a birthday present.
Yeah. And, I sent it far and wide to folks that I obviously knew and not living in the city, and, folks that even in different states.
Yeah. Friends and family and stuff like that.
Yeah. That was a huge thing because people were like, oh, $40, I can totally, do that. Even looking at the $5 to $10, people then are investing in you.
Yeah.
And, sending the personal thank you notes. Yeah, I raised about, I think it was about $10,000 my first campaign. And so not very much, but plenty to get a mailer out. And again, it was just me and one other person. And so it was really about, for me, the time and door knocking and just getting out there. I would rent park pavilions. And so on Saturdays and Sundays, I would rent the pavilion, have ice cream, have lemonade. Folks could stop
smart.
by.
I like that.
I did my campaign kickoff was just an ice cream social. It just went back to the basics. Keep it really simple.
But I assume you did use social media too.
Oh, 100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I would put out a little summary every week. Use MailChimp, would do, email and all that.
Yeah, you got to do an all the above strategy really, and engage with people, and people will email your campaign website too, and you need to have a dialogue there. And then I think the patch has comments too. I didn't engage in comments on the newspapers.
No, I didn't either. We just had the patch.
I had some surrogates do it, though.
Fairfax Connection did some things, those kinds of things.
I had some surrogates jump in there, though.
There you go.
I didn't personally do it. I had a tactic. You use Nextdoor. You know Nextdoor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Nextdoor has rules where the admins will shut you down if you look like you're campaigning. So my way around that was I live right on Langston Boulevard, and a lot of local restaurants, like real mom and pop ethnic places, right? So there's some that are just my absolute favorite, and I would just go and put my arm around the owner and do a selfie and just say how great the food is and everything like that. So it's not a blatant political post on Nextdoor, but it's definitely about the community and supporting local restaurants and everything. And especially after COVID, right? You're trying to get people to get back into that and everything.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great, point. I did the same thing there's a bagel shop that's open, that's, mom and pop bagel shop that everyone goes to Saturday and Sunday. And so I hosted join me for a bagel, one morning. I went to the hardware store and hosted something.
That's smart. That's good campaigning. Yeah, I like that. That's good.
Yeah. So went to the Twins Ace Hardware in Fairfax City, and the owner is fantastic and is very involved in the city as well. And so again, that small business community also is looking for someone who can support them if they're in that chair.
Well, and you don't want to always just be listening to the single family homeowners. You also want to be listening to the small business people, the apartment dwellers, and things like that. You really need to get people from all different aspects of society to support your campaign. So we talked about Republicans and Democrats, and you chose not to be endorsed by either party. What
my opponent did actually choose.
Oh, your opponent did. So your opponent was endorsed, and they didn't win, though. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a good testament for running as an independent.
But she also had not been involved in the community at all. Right. And again, that goes a long way here. What's your resume of being involved in the community?
I'm a veteran, and it is possible to parachute into a place and run for office, but it's pretty unlikely, right? And you have to kind of be part of the community. You have to be part of the community. And there are some veterans that think they can just parachute in, and it usually doesn't work because even here in Arlington, that's right across the river from DC, it's look, you need to have your local government bona fides, or you're just not going to get very far. Yeah. All right, so you got wrapped up into COVID, and you have a family, and so tell us a little bit about stepping that down and everything.
So my oldest was entering the final years of high school, and there's just a lot happening: college visits, making decisions, and that kind of thing. So I just was from my, what I was doing on the, as my career and what I need for family, I was I need to take a step back. And so I press the pause button is what I say, just to kind of focus on things that I needed to focus on at that time. So, all
right. And did they have to do a special election and everything too to fill your seat?
No, I stepped down. I just didn't run for re-election. I finished my 2 terms.
You finished your terms. Okay.
Because I ran for election again for the second term and served in full term, and then decided after that to just let's step away for a moment.
All right. Well, that's you didn't leave in the middle of the game here.
I did
that's
not.
Good. Yeah,
I did not. No.
Good for you. Good for you. All right. So you but now you're contemplating something more.
There is, I've got 2 now in college, and the other 2, because I have 4 kids, the other 2 are in high school, so much more independent than we were at that time. And so it's been, it'll be almost 5 years, and there's an election next year. So I'm just considering it. There's, again, mayor and council are open. And so we'll see. And we're hitting another crossroads with some pivotal things that will be happening.
Right. Decisions.
So I'm contemplating. I will you can pick up your packet on January 2nd. So I've got some time to think about it.
Right. You definitely have time and everything. Well, we do hope you run and everything like that. So what are your thoughts about, the independence movement, minor party movement? What are your thoughts about that?
On the local side, I think it's fantastic, right? And again,
keep local politics local, right? Or nonpartisan. Keep it nonpartisan.
And it just allows more inclusion. Again, for example, here with federal employees can't run if it's under a party. So you eliminate, especially here in Northern Virginia, DC, Maryland, you eliminate a whole pool of people.
So I ran for Arlington County Board in 2021, and I was actually a federal government employee in the intelligence community, and I got my get out of jail free letter from the Hatch Act people, and but there's so many federal government employees that
they don't want to jump through that
they misinterpret the rules. They think they can't even do anything. They can't even go to a fundraiser or something like that.
Right.
I mean, I fully support the Hatch Act, but people need to understand the rules more than most people do.
They need to understand the intent of the Hatch Act.
Right.
Sure.
Absolutely. So every year in Richmond, there are people who put together legislation to make local races partisan. And I have been very active. I mean, I've sent emails, I've made phone calls, I've made public statements in subcommittees opposing it. And a lot of times I bring up the federal government employees and the military people. I mean, even military people, they probably shouldn't be serving in local office while they're still in uniform. But, if you're going to run a campaign, you need to start early. So, you should be able to run your campaign while you're still in uniform, as long as when you get sworn in, you're not in uniform anymore.
Yeah.
So you could be retiring or something,
Exactly. Agreed. And I served on the council with 2 federal employees, and we didn't always agree on anything, but I enjoyed serving with them.
And they probably brought a lot to the table. Yeah.
Brought a lot to the table, a lot of wisdom to the table and to the discussion. And so we wouldn't have been able to have them serve if, they had to run under a party.
Yeah. And all that means is that currently when your name is on the ballot, it doesn't have an R, a D, or an I next to it. Right. But this legislation that gets introduced every year says, no, we want to make the races partisan. And some of the arguments are just so stupid, and it's so insulting to voters. I don't know if they're a Republican or a Democrat. It's well, go to their website and see what they stand for or something like that.
Yeah.
Do your research,
Right.
I think voters need to take a little bit of responsibility on
100%. 100%.
Stop being hand fed the sample ballot and everything.
Right.
Do your own
research. Because I also see it where they just vote the sample ballot, right? Like you said, but you didn't do your due diligence, because now that person's on a local, dais or the council, and they're so focused on the federal and the politics. It's a stepping stone, and they're actually not there to do the work. And that doesn't do anybody any good.
Right. Yeah.
I get it. If people want, I understand that people want to do the stepping stones, but I just think that they also need to be responsible for the task at hand and do their due diligence in that seat. There is a responsibility, and you have an obligation, if you're voted in, to pay attention to that and not do an agenda that's set for a national party.
I agree with you 100%. I really do. And hopefully we can keep fighting that legislation every time it comes up. I might call you up, in January and have you testify or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was funny. I just had breakfast with our current mayor, and I was like, I had a conversation the other day about this, and I was like, what is it? You have to let us know if this comes forward, and what do you think about that? So,
Well, and then also they want to make, like clerk of the court and treasurer, and they want to make those partisan too, which is ridiculous. Sheriff,
and really, there's some conversations about like whether treasurer and should be even an elected position, right? Like there's all kinds of things that are.
But
but to make it partisan.
I think it's the commissioners of revenues who have been very. They're the ones that have like gone to Richmond as, they have a association or something like that. And they've been really good about testifying every year about it. And I've done my part, but having, current elected officials, and they're so articulate. They're like, look, this is not a elected, or it's not a policy making position, being a commissioner of revenue. It is I execute the law type thing. Right. And that should not be partisan at all and everything. Yeah. That's how I feel.
And I was really proud of looking at my supporter list. It was both sides, and and really some that were really far apart on like party views. But when we had dialogues, they were like, "Oh, we have more common ground than we don't," and so I'm going to endorse you. And same with people on the other side. So,
but I also feel that voters vote for people, and you're obviously an enjoyable person to be around and everything. So, and not everybody is. So,
that's true.
All right, let me shift on to something else. So, what are you familiar with the Good Party and the Forward Party, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, is the Good Party, is that like the organization that helps like provide resources?
So they provide free resources for independent and minor party and it's all local too, local or state.
And I think that's fantastic, especially for first time people who are running or campaign managers who are trying to figure things out. There's just a lot of the more resources that you can get folks, especially if they're running on the local level for the very first time.
Yeah, free and readily available and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. The Forward Party, I find fascinating. Andrew Yang, when he was running and kind of came up with this whole thing, like, they have those questions of, sometimes they ask in, as an icebreaker, who would you really like to have lunch with? He's on my list of someone I would love to have lunch with and have a conversation about the Forward Party and just his thoughts on, because I just found a lot of the things that he brought up. And again, people from both sides, both Republicans and Democrats, were kind of intrigued by the conversations he was starting.
Well, I listen to his podcast all the time, and he's also on, certain shows and everything. And I just really like him too. He's just very like thoughtful, and
let's get stuff done.
He understands these complex issues, but unfortunately, the Forward Party needs to gain some traction. And I did recruit and help a Forward Party candidate in Arlington, which I'm very proud of. Her name was Madison Granger, so you can look her up.
Okay.
And she, she got like 14,000 votes and everything, so not too bad. But the Forward Party needs more candidates, right? So we can really make a difference. Because, the old saying is, candidates matter, that type of thing.
Agreed. And I think the younger generation is more interested in that. My sons are now voters, and watching them say, like, even have conversation over the dinner table saying, I don't like candidates on either side. I just won't vote.
Yeah.
We cannot have people giving up because.
Well, but they have a reason to be giving up, and they feel like they're being unrepresented. And last year's presidential election, where the Republican nominee, we all know his defects, and he didn't go to one Republican debate. He didn't participate in one, and then we know Joe Biden dropped out at the last minute, and Kamala Harris had to put together a campaign in 100 days, and. No wonder younger people and a lot of people are just like, why does it even matter? And everything. But one of the good things is you can have a voice in the local government.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
Even though I'm an independent, all the Democrats on the Arlington County Board, they all reply to my emails and phone calls and everything like that. So I'm grudgingly like, there's some good people on the Arlington County Board, and I just don't agree with everything. But and I do think the party is too strong in Arlington and a little bit corrupt. And I really hope that they. I really hope that some independent or forward party candidates can really make some gains here. So
right, I agree.
So you mentioned that you're familiar with ranked choice voting, and you would consider it if you are back on. I
think it would be interesting to dig more into. I'd really have to dig more into it because of how we do the election, where you're like, it's 6 seats and, that kind of a setup. Right. I know there's conversation about switching from 2-year to 4-year terms and, kind of getting a staggered, because it's all 6 seats. So like you could have all new people every 2 years, really. And that doesn't do the city any good either.
And some of the people that are at the bottom, they could win with a very small percentage of the vote too.
Oh, last time it was 3 votes.
Yeah.
the 6 between the 6th and the 7th was 3 votes.
They're trying to change the form of government in Arlington too, and we have at large. In Arlington, I actually prefer districts. I think we should do districts. I think there's a lot to be said for it. And then as an independent, I felt that I could communicate my message to Northwest Arlington, but for all 247,000 people, that's just too hard.
County does districts, so
most counties do, and even some cities do. So it's we're kind of stuck in the past here and everything.
Yeah.
So well, it was really great having you on the show today. Before we wrap up, what I like people to do is kind of look into the camera and speak to our viewers and try to encourage them to run as an independent for local office.
Yeah. I would just say to everyone who is thinking about running, do it. Just do it. But it's
like the Nike commercial, right? Just do it.
Just do it. And with a little, but it's really about making sure you check your why and, why you want to do this. And kind of write things out of why you want to do it. What are you looking to do? And, but it can be scary. It can be unknown, but everyone has something to contribute. Everyone has wisdom and experiences to bring to the table.
Yeah. And you make a lot of good points. I do say to people though, that, ego is about running for office too, right? So if someone is 100% like completely humble, I'm a little skeptical, because you need to think you're the best person to be up there on the dais, right?
Yeah, good point.
And you don't want to be egotistical or anything, but you need to think you're the best person to be up there, right? And some people are just so shy, or whatever word you want to use, that they don't even want to think about that. So and get involved in some way if you're not running for office. Get involved in a commission or something like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, or support a candidate. Be on the campaign and kind of just really dig yourself in, or dig into what's happening. Yeah,
and help out a candidate you believe in. Well, Jennifer, it was great talking to you today, and hopefully your inspirational words will inspire others to run for office.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, and happy to be here.